think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending the beginning of your week with us here. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine here. One of the ways we do that is to talk about the news and expose the truth, expose corruption, expose even the appearance of corruption. And last week was a big week, wasn't it? It all started, did it start on Tuesday or Wednesday, when the governor's son, Attorney Hutchinson, as he's called, which is odd. You know, remember the uncle, nephew, and nephew parodies, and now we've got one of the nephews that's going to jail, been indicted. Yeah, I think we're going to call, yeah, now it's more like father and son, and, you know what I mean? Anyway, so this is fascinating to me because the mainstream media has barely touched this, barely even touched it. Now, I haven't had just an incredible amount of time to pore over the headlines. I have been basically hunting all weekend. More on that later in the week, by the way. I'm going to have to do a follow-up story about the Arkansas Game and Fish. I'll tell you about it later in the week. But, so, here's the thing. If you go to Google right now, this is where I wanted to start today. And you go to Google and you type in Asa Hutchinson. And then you type in then you hit the news button. 3 days ago, there was one mainstream media outlet that reported on this story. And it was KATV, the Little Rock ABC News affiliate, which is pretty ironic considering the ABC, we had it all 3 years ago, concerning what they did, the corporate side of ABC, killing the Epstein story and allowing more and more children to be molested and raped. By the way, there's some interesting memes out there about George Snuffleupagus you might want to check out. Headline, is the governor of Arkansas's son benefiting from his father's position? This is, again, KATV 3 days ago. There hasn't been a peep since in the mainstream media. And this is fascinating to me because, Mike, you'd think Michael Wickline of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette would be interested in this. You'd think maybe Doug Thompson might be interested in this. I mean, that's it. If you type in Asa Hutchinson, the number one search hit you get right now under news is the governor's son benefiting? The next hit is local NBC affiliate, KARK. Governor Asa Hutchinson announces intent to grant executive clemency from 6 days ago. And then the third hit is, how old is this one? I can't see on the screen here. 3 weeks ago, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson details overseas trip, and this is back when he went to India, and I believe also the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. It was an economic development trip. By the way, we're quickly finding out that economic development is a bait and switch most of the time, aren't we? We also now have to ask the question, and if the mainstream media doesn't believe this is news, then I don't know what we're going to do. You guys are going to have to be the news. You guys are going to have to go out there and share all the stuff that we're reporting. Because this is just incredible to me. Now everything the governor, just so you know, everything that our governor does from here on out, we now have to ask the question, is his son in his own law firm, the governor's law firm, which he owns, on his LinkedIn profile, Asa Hutchinson says, owner of Asa Hutchinson Law Group, we now have to ask every single policy goal this guy has, every move, we have to ask, well, is his son, the lawyer here? Is his law firm benefiting? Are they setting the law firm up to benefit later in the future? They just opened an office in Madrid. I mean, come on. I'd like to chart the profitability. I mean, there's no way we can. It's a private business, but it's being. It looks like, I mean, the private business is being paid back with taxpayer money. I mean, it's what it looks like. The state of Arkansas gives these quick action closing fund grants to these Chinese communist entities, and then the Chinese communist entities become clients of the governor's law firm. I mean, you just tie the portion of that back to the law firm. I will say this, if you go back and you look at the governor's answer when he was asked by some brave reporter, talk about the presence of your son there. And, of course, Asa was definitely nervous. Normally he's pretty cool, calm, and collected when he answers questions. You could tell he was definitely nervous. If you watch his hands especially, he was fidgeting with his hands. And it's because he knows he's going to have to, you would think he's going to have to answer for this at some point. There needs to be an investigation, and who knows? I had somebody float me the theory on Friday. That the reason they put all those photos out there that Asa Hutchinson III is on the trip, Asa Hutchinson III posted the photo of his own client with his dad overseas. The reason they put that out there is because there is already investigation, and there's an attempt to normalize this. Well, we didn't think it was any big deal. We're just being totally transparent here. I don't know if that's the case. Who knows? I'm just telling you that's one theory somebody called me with. Listen, there is a level of shame here if you work for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And look, when the Arkansas Democrat Gazette reports something that I think is good, I have told you in the past, hey, this is good. Sometimes I would maybe title the headlines a little different, but the Arkansas Democrat Gazette can do some good reporting. They have done good reporting before. But I just don't understand how there's not a story on this. I don't understand. Now, maybe, I'll try to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess. Maybe they're doing some really extensive research and they're about to bust this thing wide open even more than we already have. We're the ones here at Conduit News, we're the ones that have started to piece together all of these different clients and how they relate to American companies. We're the one that brought up iStation, and you can see right now, they get this contract with the Department of Education. iStation's an American company that uses the governor's law firm, and they get a big testing contract to computer, not computer coding, although because that'd be hilarious. An assessment company. They do, for the elementary school kids to chart their progress. Where's the outrage on that? Talk about Chinese business. What about iStation, right? What about their relationship with the governor's law firm, his son, and the fact that they're getting taxpayer monies? This is all public information. It's all public domain, but, you got to start asking the questions. And I just don't understand why the Arkansas Democrat Gazette hasn't. If I think, was our first reporting on this on Wednesday or Thursday? Either way, we reported on it. Then the Arkansas Times reported. So we did a story on it, basically from 6 to 8 o'clock on the day. Then later that afternoon by 2, it was Max Brantley picked it up at the Arkansas Times. And then I guess a day later, finally, KATV did a story. This was on Thursday evening, because then that made the Friday broadcast. And so I was like, okay, Saturday, nothing. All right, well, maybe they're holding it for Sunday. That'd be their big nothing. So, I mean, what are they going to bury this on the 5th page on a Wednesday newspaper or something? It's just, the mainstream media, they don't want to cover this. Speaking of the Arkansas Times, Max Brantley noted this on the 8th. This headline here, Hutchinson family profits, news or not? So Max Brantley's asking similar questions. Quote, a media head-scratcher this morning in Noel Oman's Arkansas Democrat Gazette account of Governor Asa Hutchinson's news conference Thursday on his Asian trade junket. He omitted mention of a question the governor took about his son's participation in the trip in behalf of Chinese clients who've received Arkansas taxpayer benefits from the governor. Oman did note the participation of a former timber industry executive now working for Sun Paper, a potential paper mill in Clark County. The governor mentioned him and his paying his own way in the course of defending Asa Hutchinson III's joining the entourage at several stops, including a client of his law firm that has received millions in state economic benefits. The governor said his son, too, paid his own way. Hang on a second. He paid his own way. Was it the Asa Hutchinson law firm, though? Because it's okay, he paid his own way. It's the law firm owned by the governor. It's right there on the LinkedIn account. And if the law firm paid Asa III's own way, he works for his law firm, for his dad's law firm, but the law firm is getting Chinese money because they're clients. Well, this is just launder. You just follow the money. You just launder it enough. I mean, it's very possible that it's it's still at the taxpayer expense because you have the governor's law firm and his son working for the governor's law firm, taking money from communist Chinese entities disguised as companies for economic. It's semantics. It's just financial semantics. It's all the same thing. Because you can't really tell where the private company begins and the government begins, or where the government ends and the private company begins, because it's all messed up, man. This is so messed up. But anyway, I just want to point out that Max Brantley, who I disagree with on a lot of things, he's on the left, I'm on the right, but you got people on the left and the right saying, this is something that everyone can agree is wrong. Everyone can agree. Democrat, Republican, independent, liberal, conservative, progressive, whatever you want to call yourself, or you don't want to call yourself anything. We can all agree that the governor's law firm that still bears his name as the founder, when they announced that they're moving to Madrid, they described their law firm as essentially being politically connected because Ace is the governor. Asa Hutchinson is still the number one attorney, the first attorney you see when you click on lawyers on the website. Asa Hutchinson III, and these other people. I mean, how is this okay? How is this? This is just blatantly. And then you post the photos. You must not care too much about what other people are going to think. Also, by the way, Arkansas Times did a podcast where they mentioned I thought was interesting, in light of the fact that Asa Jr. and Asa are in China together in that whole controversy. Plus, the governor's nephew Jeremy Hutchinson. There's a new indictment of Tom and Bontia Goss, where Hutchinson apparently is singing like a canary. So they titled it the Asa's Relatives Edition. I thought that was pretty funny. So they, oh man. Okay, here's a new out for Conduit for Action. But by the way, if you want to kind of rehash what's going on, we address here the issue at hand, the question that the governor really didn't answer the conflict of interest question at all. Headline: Asa answers / deflections on his Chinese connection. Last week, Conduit News broke the story of Governor Asa Hutchinson's law firm representing Chinese companies that have been receiving Arkansas taxpayer money in the form of economic incentives. This includes the fact that the governor's son, Asa Hutchinson III, who is the managing partner of their law firm, was in China with his father, attending the meeting alongside with the official Arkansas delegation led by his father. This raised the question whether the governor is self-dealing, using state incentives to bolster his assets of his law firm and to financially benefit his son. Governor met with the press via video. At the end of his long report, the governor was asked about his son's presence in the meeting. He made these points/deflections. Number one, Asa III came at his own expense. Does that mean the Asa Hutchinson Law Group or perhaps Chinese clients? Asa III came to support projects that are important to his client. The Chinese? Number three, it is not unusual for Arkansans from the private sector to attend such meetings at their own expense. Then he named some Arkansas business people on the trip. Wonder how well that went over with them. That's a good question. Oh, man. Arkansas taxpayers didn't have to pay for the travel expenses of Asa III, but travel expenses have never been the issue. And that's just why the question itself was actually phrased very poorly. The issue concerns the use of the governor's office to make money for himself or his family using government handouts over which the governor has control. Governor Hutchinson used the presence of other private sector Arkansans to explain away his son being in the Chinese meetings. The presence of other private sector Arkansans does not negate concerns over whether the governor is trying to benefit himself, his son, or both. Instead, his mention of others being there raises more questions. If the state of Arkansas did not put out a y'all come invitation to all Arkansans wanting to do business with China, how did those private sector Arkansans manage to get on the invitation list to attend the meetings, including a function at the residence of the American ambassador? Were some invited by the Chinese? It's a really good question. As there Arkansas, some invited by the governor. How do these companies get here? If the governor's administration was inviting insiders, is that institutional cronyism? That's a good point. That's a very good question. Let's get back to the main point, though. The governor's law firm is representing Chinese clients, and those clients have received state handouts, period. And it is the governor's law firm. If there's any state agent, or if there's any newspaper or publication, KATV, this is the governor's law firm. You have to understand this. Until he removes his name, this is the governor's law firm. Do not be distracted from focusing on whether Governor Hutchinson or his family is benefiting from his official position. Here's the question. Is the governor receiving income from his law firm? If he is not taking income at this time, are profits from representing the Chinese being accumulated as assets of the firm to be available for the governor to tap in the future? Is it one of the benefits to the governor the increased status of the law firm, which may benefit him when he leaves public office and resumes his law practice? Think Clinton Foundation. Just in terms of, after you leave office, now you make the real money. You know what I mean? Assuming the governor has no present or future stake in the law firm, is this another Joe Biden, Hunter Biden situation where an office holder uses his position to benefit his son? Bonus question. The Asa Hutchinson Law Group opened an office in Madrid last month. Can we expect Arkansas economic development dollars to be directed to Spain soon? Arkansas has a long-standing pattern of self-dealing by office holders. We've got to be vigilant, folks. Remembering the worst of the examples of greed among Arkansas office holders have resulted in several recent criminal convictions, including guilty pleas by the governor's nephew, Senator Jeremy Hutchinson. The governor's other senator, nephew Jim Hendren, declared earlier this year, quote, "Let us begin this session of the General Assembly today with a determination that the culture of greed and corruption is over, And then he promptly co-sponsored greedy legislation allowing an office holder to divert campaign funds to personal use as long as the office holder claims the expense is for office holder activities. Arkansas has a political system that is broken from greed. The governor stumbled through his response about the presence of his son in Chinese meetings. And next will come the real questions concerning whether he has used his office to benefit his family. Of course, will the media shake out of their apathy other than KATV? Will they start to question, maybe the governor, maybe it really isn't about jobs that'll come here at some point in the next 30 years. Maybe it's about something more, personal benefit. It's all right there, and there's actual evidence of it all. And all these people, there is no evidence of Joe and Hunter. There's evidence everywhere, just like there's evidence here. Just start asking questions. How about it? We're going to break for 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Yes. All right. Last week, real quick, let's remind you, if you're just joining us, you don't know what's going on. Here's Asa getting asked a question about his son being on this economic development trip. I think are they back in America? I think they got back on the 9th. Go ahead.
Yes.
Could you just speak about your son's trip to China that coincided with your trip, and what was that all about? And
Well, as Mike mentioned, as we do these trips, it's not unusual for the private sector partners to, at their own expense, go and either support the mission or to help the companies that they're interested in. For example, in this case, Ray Dillon traveled at his own expense or the expense of the company. I'm not sure which one, but he was there at the request of Sun Paper. And so he participated in part of the meetings that we had that related to Sun Paper project. Likewise, Rajesh Shakani went at his own expense to India to support our mission there. Likewise, Attorney Hutchinson, at his own expense, came here to China to support projects that are important to his client, but also very important to the state of Arkansas.
Look at the
He has
fidgeting of the hands.
International immigration practice that is a little bit unique, and the visas for some of these international companies is a critical issue for them. So delighted to have that support that was paid for by the private companies and not at taxpayers' expense. And
that's not the issue. Stop.
In, at least one of them.
Oh man, that'll be very interesting to I got a feeling to listen to that as things kind of roll out. What do you guys think? Chinese clients for your law firm. We're going to ignore the elephant in the room. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break.
big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Rui Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Rui, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Lee to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Watching a YouTube video on Timber Company. Okay, 870-275-9799 is telephone number. I'm sure we're going to be reporting new developments with this story, or at least the trails that we're on as we start to investigate these different companies in terms of at this point, every single, again, policy goal that involves private business at all that our governor wants now has to be vetted in terms of is his own law firm going to make money off of through retainer fees or whatever, that his son's working for. It's just absolutely, we now can't, literally you've got to say, well, is somebody getting money on the other side of this that's related to the governor? It's absolutely maddening when you think about this. It's a huge bombshell story, and only one mainstream media outlet has covered this, and they only did it 3 days ago. It's really, really sad. We'll continue to keep you updated on this, folks. I saw this article on Newsmax, newsmax.com. Escalating millennial health problems raise economic concerns. And so I was like, well, what kind of health problems are we talking about here? I want to bring in Dr. Michael Busler is back with us. It's always great to have him with us. Dr. Busler, how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well, Paul. Thanks for having me. As you know, it's always my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. It's always great to talk to you. Again, professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey. You've seen him as a featured columnist at Newsmax, at LifeSat, and townhall.com. So what do you make of this? I mean, as an economist, sir, what do you make of spiking health concerns in millennials? Why is that a potential problem for the economy? I mean, the answer is obvious there. But what kind of health problems are we talking about?
So the millennials, and you're talking about people essentially in their 20s and 30s. Primarily, people in their 20s don't get sick very often. And even into their 30s, you don't require a whole lot of health care. You require more as you get older generally. So that generation is supposed to be the healthiest at this point. And the way the healthcare system essentially works, it's a pay-as-you-go system. So the people that are paying now, in like Medicare, for instance, the people that are paying into Medicare now are paying to cover the people that are receiving it. And then when these people get older, they receive care. The problem is that this generation, millennials, are suffering from anxiety, depression, and high blood pressure. And what's the reason for that? Well, I come from an economics background, so I always tend to look in that direction. So what happened between 2006 and 2016 is the economy had a long period of economic stagnation, where economic growth averaged only about 2%. So when that happened, because of the slow growth, there were fewer job opportunities created. So those that were good and higher income found opportunities. The rest of the millennials found things very difficult. They ended up with carrying a fairly large student debt, which added to their anxiety. They couldn't find a job. They had to live with their parents, and there was stories about the millennials living in the basement of their parents' home. That tended to add to anxiety. And making it worse, after the Affordable Care Act was passed, it said that any employer with more than 50 employees, every employee that works over 30 hours a week, you must provide health insurance or pay a $3,000 penalty. So how the market reacted to that was they created a lot of part-time jobs. They only hire people for 25 hours a week, so they wouldn't have to pay the health insurance and the additional cost. So here you had, particularly with college graduates, a large number graduating, no real opportunities, and they said, well, what do I need this? I just spent all this money on a college degree. I just spent 4 years of my time. I've got $30,000 in debt, and I can't find a suitable job. And it turns out all I can find is a part-time job, and to try to make ends meet, I might have to take 2 of these part-time jobs. So that, too, added to anxiety and depression. You're working 50 hours a week and not making as much as you should in a job where you're qualified for. So that led to the anxiety, and I think that's what's leading to some of the problems we're seeing now with their health.
Wow. That is absolutely incredible how the economy can affect. And you know, you mentioned Obamacare too, and what these businesses did. I mean, you know what? Robots, you don't have to pay for their health care. And I know, even if you were to, let's say, look at the industrial automation side of things, there's a lot of people that were like, you know what? I don't want to have to pay for my employees' health care here. That's going to continue to increase, where I could just invest in robotics and I have a knowable cost. I mean, it's going to be expensive, but at least it's a knowable cost. And then I don't have to worry about paying health care, Yeah,
and a lot of that is happening. That's why, in my view, when there was a lot of press that came out back in 2010, starting in 2010, 2011, is, listen, you don't need to go to college. You can get a good job without going to college. So you don't need to spend all that money on college. Well, what happens is, as capital replaces labor, you get robots in there in place of labor. As labor costs keep going up, you're going to continue to do that. So labor has the unique advantage that they have intelligence, and if you have a good college degree or some kind of education with a skill or something, you'll be able to contribute to the economy and do well. So the way this is going to end up being fixed is exactly what the current administration is doing. Focus on economic growth, increase economic growth, start adding, start a situation where employers are demanding more workers. They need more workers, and that demand is bringing wages up. And really, for the last year and a half, there have been more job openings than there are unemployed people. Today, there's about 7 million job openings and about 6 million unemployed people. Well, that tells you that there's now opportunity in the economy, and some of these millennials that have suffered through maybe a decade of this slow growth, they're starting to see, I think, a little bit of hope that this opportunity is bringing.
Yeah. Well, I really had never dawned on me how depressing and anxious I would be if I had all this college debt, and couldn't find a job. And you're, sitting there, you're so young. And, I wonder if a lot of people realize, like you said, you don't necessarily have to go to college, but we certainly have a educational industrial complex that tells these kids, and the guidance counselors, they look at their numbers. Well, how many people did we get into get accepted and are attending college? How many in the senior class? They look at that as their goal. And I remember when I was in high school, that's all you were taught. You got to go to college, got to go to college, got to go to college. And now, I believe that trend is still continuing, and you got these government guaranteed loans and it makes the colleges actually not have to worry about the cost of tuition. And so,
right.
and if you're one of these kids that doesn't really understand, what it's like to owe money, they don't understand being in debt is a bad thing. They've been told they've got to go to this institution their whole life, and then they get into the real world and they're like, wow, I feel like I've been lied to,
Yeah, and that's, that alone will lead to a lot of depressed conditions and anxiety. Look, college is not for everyone, but for everyone who it's right for, I would encourage them to go to college, not just to say, well, I'm going to learn a specific skill, which you will, but more importantly, in college, you learn critical thinking skills. And that enables you to make better decisions in life and probably get a little further along. So I would say to people, look, if college is right for you, don't get discouraged because the job market was bad over the last decade. The economy runs in cycles. Job markets are good and bad. But with a college degree, there will be so many more opportunities open to people, especially in a higher growth economy, which we're trying to work into today. And even if you don't need the college degree for the first job, you're looking at upward mobility. You want to get promoted and move up to supervisory positions where you can make greater contributions and earn higher income. Well, all of that is much more likely if you had a good, solid educational background. Now, again, for everybody, college isn't perfect. However, we do need people in the skilled trades. So if you're more inclined in that direction, again, learn a skill, become as good in it as you possibly can. That enables you to make a good contribution to the economy, and that will lead to greater opportunities in the future.
Yeah. Dr. Michael Busler, I got one more question for you. We're approaching this holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. You think consumer confidence is up? Do you think it's going to be a good quarter economically for us?
Yeah. So the economy was starting to grow and take off, and then the Federal Reserve decided between the end of 2016 and the end of 2018 to raise interest rates 8 times, and they decided to pull $500 billion out of the money supply. Well, just when growth was about to take off, the Federal Reserve put a damper on it, and now it's slowed down. Fortunately, they realized they made a mistake. They have now cut interest rates 3 times, and they stopped shrinking up the money supply. So the consensus view is the fourth quarter will be less than 2% growth. I'm a little more optimistic than that. I think it'll be better than 2% growth, and I think going into next year, we'll see even higher growth. Retailers have asked me what I thought about the Christmas season. I think we're going to have a great Christmas season for retailers this year. I think sales are going to be 4 to 5% higher this year than they were last year. Now, a couple things with that. Let me just real quickly. There are fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas this year because Thanksgiving is so late. So what the retailers did, they started Christmas selling very early, even now.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, there are Christmas sales starting to pop up. So retailers are going to get very aggressive. Consumers are very confident. Their wages are up more than they've been increasing in 2 decades, and inflation remains relatively low, under 2%. So those increases in wages are real increases. I'm very optimistic for the Christmas buying season, and I'm optimistic that growth next year is going to pick up.
Dr. Michael Busler, we really appreciate it. Public policy analyst, professor of economics at Stockton University in New Jersey. It's always great to have you on, sir. I'll do it again soon.
Thank you, Paul. It's my pleasure.
All righty. Yeah, I was in Walmart. I had to go buy some. I was like, where's the charcoal at? And they were like, well, I think it's sold in the garden center. I looked into the garden center of Walmart, and it is like Christmas threw up in there. And then there was this void or this threshold where literally you were blasted. You walk like you're like inside Walmart, not in the garden center. Normal Walmart. You take one step into the threshold of the garden center, and you're blasted with Christmas music. I mean, literally, it was like entering another dimension. I'm like, where is the charcoal? And you know me, I'm a huge Christmas guy. I love Christmas. Really, I do. But the type of music they were playing, it was weird Christmas music. It was like stuff I've never heard of. Anyway, that's definitely happening. And of course, you got some people that still have the Halloween decorations up, which again, the Halloween decorations in the front yard is just something I will never, ever understand, aside from maybe like a pumpkin or something. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to reset here. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about a bait and switch. There are legislators now asking questions, serious questions, about a bill they passed that was supposed to give money to rural communities to expand their internet. And instead, a bunch of bureaucrats are completely, according to reports, violating the intent of the Arkansas General Assembly. I'll tell you about that next.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Lee. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas,
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
我在这里
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, couple of things. Just you guys remember out there, I know we've got modern gun season all week. Just remember, those deer out there are not Jeffrey Epstein. They're not going to kill themselves. So you guys get at it, all right? Loving all these Jeffrey Epstein memes. I found this one, 4_touchdowns. What the media wants you to talk about. Kids fighting for gun control. A picture of David Hogg. Kids fighting against climate change. Picture of Greta Thunberg. What the media doesn't want you to talk about is kids being victimized by elite pedophiles like Prince Andrew, or Bill Clinton, or Jeffrey Epstein. ABC News. We had it all 3 years ago. We had it all.
Did you hear about the eco-Nazis over in San Francisco?
No.
That's
interesting.
It's not. No, it's a joke. They call them eco-Nazis because they're supporters of Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
That's what they call us. And they put up a big, huge mural of her on the side of a building using aerosol spray paint.
No, they didn't.
It's massive.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's huge.
Oh, man, that's great. Well, she's worth it to the movement. Let's just burn a little bit of a hole in the ozone, and it's okay. We can do that just to spread awareness about climate change. You see, that actually is a really good point. When you are more upset, I can't remember who I was listening to that said this. The hypocrisy here is ridiculous. Okay, we got to protect the environment. Why? Why do we have to protect the environment? Well, so we have, better quality of life. So we protect everything. And we've got more people who are willing to put up with homeless feces on the streets. They're more outraged. You know what I mean? Like your own community, you can't walk down the street. San Francisco is a garbage town now. Los Angeles may be, they're hoping the bubonic plague doesn't come back because of the problems, the homeless problems they have there. And yet these elites are more worried about, the Paris Climate Accords than they are about actually taking practical ideas of making sure your environment is clean. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but, in the book of Genesis, when the Lord is giving the law, there's more than just the Ten Commandments. When they actually start giving the law, one of the things that God says is, hey, when you got to go to the bathroom, go outside the camp to do that. Just kind of basic ideas of cleanliness. Anyway, something to think about. I tell you what, back on this Epstein stuff, though, the Epstein meme, all the memes that you see out there about Jeffrey Epstein that are, funny, he didn't kill himself, that sort of thing, those memes and that trend are lasting longer than Epstein did in prison. So here's a story from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, headlined by Hunter Field. Internet step feared to miss target in state. Shift to cities in rural broadband plan dismays lawmakers. So basically, at the beginning of the year, they had their session, and they voted to create a structure where state grants would be given to rural areas in Arkansas to attempt to give those places internet, right? So basically, it's not profitable for companies to do that because there's not enough customers for them to remake the money it would take to lay the groundwork, to lay the wires, the fiber optics, or I don't know, whatever they got to do, okay? And the state needs to be involved here. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I'm just telling you that's why they did it. Well, it's funny because lawmakers are upset now that a bunch of bureaucrats are now directing those grant programs. So the Arkansas Rural Connect grant program, they're not going to rural communities. Instead, they're going to cities. Think about that. Local government officials, internet companies, and other stakeholders had near universal praise for Governor Asa Hutchinson's August announcement of $25 million in grant funds to build broadband infrastructure in rural areas. But things have changed after the details were released. Under the program, only cities with a focus on those with a population of more than 500 would be eligible for a portion of the funds. Representative Fran Cavanaugh, a Republican from Walnut Ridge, she was a co-sponsor of the bill that set this whole thing up. Act 198 of 2019, and now she says, quote, 1,000%. I disagree with the direction of the program. Quote, 1,000%. Is what she said at this point. Meaning, whatever the legislature thought the government was going to do with this piece of legislation, they're doing the opposite. Kavanaugh and many other legislators, again, Hunter Field, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, said that the program's design would further isolate rural communities. Literally, is that not maddening to think about? That you have a program that is specifically designed to do X, and the government gets involved and it does the opposite? I mean, that's got to be very frustrating. I mean, it just confirms my worldview as a limited government conservative all day long. It should confirm yours. It should cause people who are middle of the road to become more conservative. It should cause people who are leftists to become more, all of you, the people that think that government can. You never stop and think about if government can. Well, should the government? Oh, absolutely. Well, can the government actually do something? It's like, well, oftentimes, no. You just end up wasting other people's money. And then you get mad when we want to keep it. And you call us greedy. We're like, well, I don't want to give you more tax dollars because you mismanage it and you mismanage it and you do stupid things with it. And then I'm going to give you more on this story in a minute. We're out of time, but I do want to cover some more of quotes that they have in politicians. I mean, the politicians here are pretty outraged, that the rural services, the rural internet grant program, the bureaucrats and Governor Hutchinson, it's not going to the rural communities. Instead, it's going to cities that already have internet. That's crazy. But that's par for the course if you understand the pitfalls of big government and the benefits of limited small government. Back in a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary.
Chairman Lee and I met yesterday. Chairman Lee indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive. Often,
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
That's funny right there. That's funny. All right, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. If you want to contribute to the conversation. There's a lot going on in Arkansas. Several tax increases coming up tomorrow. Also, we have the hearing tomorrow of the Arkansas School for Math, Sciences, and the Arts. Been a lot of weird stuff going on there, a lot of progressive indoctrination. I wanted to bring in Kenny Wallace, who's a follower of Arkansas politics and really a lot of public meetings. Real quick, Kenny, how are you this morning, sir?
So good, Paul.
What? Thank you so much for spending a little time with us. What can you tell us? First, let's start. There are tax increase votes going on tomorrow in different communities. What can you tell us about those?
Yeah, in Harrison, Arkansas, they're having a tax increase. Cave Springs, they're having one on the 12th. That's tomorrow. It'll be at regular polling locations. They've already had early voting. Valonia, a little town north of, I believe it's north of Conway. They're having one, and then Hillcrest. I looked these up on the Secretary of State's website. I know Harrison's in Boone County, and I think Cave Springs is somewhere up in northwest Arkansas. I forgot where Hillcrest is. But these are all having special election tax increases. I know Hillcrest is a millage. I believe the rest of them are sales taxes. And, of course, these all go to some noble cause that the city officials neglected and didn't care about and then decided, oh, no, we need money. Of course, there's probably several different bike paths and other pet projects that they spent money on.
Yeah.
But this is typically what they do. And this happens all over the state and all. Even though this is supposedly a red state, we have a lot of blue city and county government. And that also leads me to what's going on also on Tuesday is 10 a.m. The hearings regarding the math and science, they're going to be at the MAC-A building. I believe the Arkansas legislature has a live stream for that now.
Yes, they do.
And then Reggie Cowan, who's been following on that, he's supposed to be there, and so he usually live streams on Facebook.
Okay.
And then at 6 p.m., the Pulaski County Quorum Court is having they're having their regular meeting, but I got a message. It was actually on Instagram that what they are trying to do is change the rules regarding election commissioners. And, of course, as you know, the Quorum Court, the Pulaski County Quorum Court is Democrat, but in the past, I believe it was the Republican, whichever party had the majority, that's who decided the election commissioners. There's 3 of them, and 2 are supposed to be the majority party, and one's supposed to be the minority party. Well, now they're going to try to change the rules to where I believe it's where the Quorum Court can either decide or it's based on their makeup. I can't remember which, but they're trying to change the rules so they can have the majority of election commissioners.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, they're trying to change the rules there. So all that's happening.
Yeah,
lots of happening tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's a busy day tomorrow. Now, what can you tell us about? First of all, today's Veterans Day, so we love our veterans. We appreciate our veterans. We wouldn't have our freedoms if they hadn't been secured by those. veterans. Where's Tom Cotton going to be? I understand he's going to be giving a speech, right?
Yes, today at 10 a.m. He's going to be at MacArthur Park. He's going to be giving a speech. Of course, as people know, Tom Cotton served for years before he ran for Senate. So there's a lot of Veterans Day events going on. A lot of businesses are honoring veterans, by offering discounts, meals. Meineke's offering a free oil change for veterans. But yeah, it's good. If you can, try to go to at least one or two events to honor them. My dad served in the Navy for 3 years. We have a lot of people, most of whom from all over the spectrum, all over the state here who are veterans. Of course, a lot of bases, Jacksonville Air Force Base, Camp Robinson. So we have a lot of veterans here, and definitely try to thank them if you can. Let them know how you feel, and honor their service by getting involved in trying to save this country. This country's nation was literally founded on, getting rid of taxes, no taxation without representation. Now it seems like we're falling asleep and letting it happen again. So It's definitely something to think about today and for the rest of the week.
I completely agree. Kenny Wallace, sir, I appreciate you checking in and updating us on, these local governments are raising taxes or trying to, just like the state government is, and I appreciate your words about our veterans, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much. It's posted on the Facebook page, too, the list of events.
Okay. All righty. Thank you so much. Kenny Wallace, everybody. Telephone number 870-275-9799. So on our Facebook broadcast this morning, we were just talking about this story where there is a new program here in Arkansas to basically connect rural areas to high-speed broadband internet. People think this will be very beneficial to have these this infrastructure built, run out to rural communities. And so the Arkansas General Assembly decided to pass a bill that became law that everybody thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread, that they were going to get this internet out to the rural communities. And the legislature was told X, and wouldn't you know it, the complete opposite actually happens. Instead of this money going to rural communities, the bureaucrats and the governor who are in charge of figuring out who gets what are only going to give it to cities. They're not going to give it to the rural communities. They're going to give it to cities. And listen, this is just the legislators in their own words, right? Fran Kavanaugh who sponsored the original piece of legislation, saying that she disagreed 1,000% with the program's direction today. Quote, "We can't just keep pushing off these people because we say it's not profitable, it's not profitable. Well, we're giving them money to set it up. If we're going to use tax dollars, then we need to service all Arkansans, not the few that we feel that it's proper for them to do." This was last week's hearing where, according again to Hunter Field, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the lawmakers, one after the other, basically chastised the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which we've heard a lot about recently because of all these Chinese deals that the Arkansas Development Commission, as well as the governor, has put into place. These Chinese deals, these Chinese companies are using the governor's law firm, being managed right now by his son. It's this really cyclical, basically his family's getting rich off of his position, and it's wrong. It shouldn't be allowed. What is going on right now with Asa Hutchinson III? We talked about this last hour. The media is silent about it, except for KATV. That's the only mainstream news outlet to run anything. Conduit News broke the story. The Arkansas Times has reported on it. We're the only ones. The only mainstream media outlet was KATV, and that was 3 days ago. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette hasn't said anything else about this. This is a huge deal. But you're starting to hear a lot about the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and how their bureaucracy is run. They try to do a lot of things under the foundation, which is, quote, private, so you can't FOIA. We really can't FOIA the deals that this is. There's no transparency with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Matter of fact, they have said Democrat Warwick Sabin tried, but believe it or not, a couple sessions ago, if you'll remember this, he tried to get a bill passed that would have required the AEDC to report, and they killed it. And then they said, we'll do it on our own. We'll do it on our own. I'm pretty sure memory is right here. My memory is right here. Well, you know what? They're not doing it, and we now know why. I think I know why Governor Asa Hutchinson said that Donald Trump shouldn't have made the phone call between Ukraine and himself. I think I know why he said it was unwise. And I don't know, is there another Republican governor? Maybe there's one or two more that said, yeah, we need to pursue this impeachment into the president. Asa Hutchinson said we need to investigate the president. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. We need to, we need to flesh this all out. And I think I know why. Because whatever Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were doing, the governor's own son is on trips to him with China, meeting with the governor, the head of state, and his attorney's son, who's working for the Chinese companies that are getting Arkansas taxpayer dollars. And the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette doesn't think this is news? What a joke. Again, I'll tell you when the Gazette does something good. If the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette is going to get into the minutia of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission over $25 million grants that are supposed to be bringing internet to rural communities, they're going to get into the minutia of that, but they're not going to tell you that the governor's son went to China with his dad, and it was exposed that on the governor's law firm's website, you've got one Chinese company that's gotten taxpayer dollars that is a client of the governor's law firm. You've got another Chinese company. You've got a third Chinese company. You've got an education institution out of Dallas that's gotten taxpayer money. That's a client listed on the website. That's not news. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit if you just go to the website and look. You have to dig a lot more to get a story like this. I don't know, man. It's just really frustrating. But real quick, I want to get back to this because this revolves around $25 million grant. It says here, local government officials, internet companies, and other stakeholders had near universal praise for Governor Hutchinson in August. He announced a $25 million in grant funds to build broadband infrastructure in rural communities, Hunterfield reports. But tones changed after the details of the Arkansas Rural Connect grant program were released last month. Only cities with a focus of those with 500 or more will be eligible to receive the funds. And this is making these lawmakers from rural districts that supported this program to build the infrastructure because the private companies won't do it because it's not profitable. This has caused them to be upset. And I would say $25 million. Here's the other thing. At this point, because the governor and his integrity is questionable and compromised when it comes to this unethical behavior of his own law firm, literally every grant he awards somebody, I've got to know if they're affiliated with a law firm in some way that we don't know about. I mean, literally, you got to ask the question on every policy goal that we have. Well, who's making money on this deal that's related to your family? It's an honest truth, man. This is just, this is scandalous. I mean, we're in the state right now where we can't really, listen, have I had policy disagreements with the governor? You know it. I had people texting me all last week as we were breaking this ASA China and ASA the 3 connection. And people were saying, thank you for covering this. Thank you. And you know what I told them? I said, I appreciate it, but I think this is the biggest issue that we face. The fact that the governor is selling the state of Arkansas out to China and making money and enriching his law firm to do it is the biggest story this state may have ever had, and it's the biggest issue, and it almost makes me wish I had never publicly disagreed with Asa Hutchinson before, because everybody knows that I have big problems with the way he's run the state, his spending increases, his tax increases, all of that stuff. But on this issue, this is the biggest one, and we have to stop this. Luckily, the president has slowed down these deals the president's policy, that President Trump has slowed down this infiltration of Chinese communism into Arkansas. But I don't know if it'll last forever. But this is, it almost made me wish I had never disagreed with him on anything else, just so more people would be like, can't say, oh, well, you can't listen to that guy. He doesn't like anything Asa does. Well, that's, for the most part, true. But, you know, the facts are the facts, folks. Look at the facts here. If you are a Democrat, a Republican, an establishment Republican, a liberal, conservative, progressive, what doesn't matter, this is wrong. What we're talking about here is black and white wrong. It's just something you don't do. Matter of fact, the only people that do it are the ones that feel like they're bulletproof. Back to rural internet. Back to the intricacies of the rural internet conspiracy. Why can't we get more coverage on this? You don't even have to say some radio host or some radio show reported. Just act like you broke the story, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. You go for it. Just do it. I felt pretty stupid myself. It's all out there. It's been out there for how long? How long has the clients, the TY Garments, Dragon Woodland, Woodland Dragon, or whatever that company's called, Rise Ever, that just opened, how long have these clients been on the governor's son's, or the governor's law firm's website that the Sun is managing? I felt quite stupid that it's all out there in the open. It wasn't until he posted the picture on his LinkedIn account of him with the Chinese executive, with his son. And then you realized, wait a second, TY Garments is a client of the governor's law firm that still lists the governor as the owner? Something's not right. So here is Senator Ricky Hill, a Republican of Cabot. Quote, "To me, they are being left behind," meaning rural Arkansans. "We're not servicing those people behind. That's the way this bill was presented, to go to rural, small town Arkansas. You're grabbing the low fruit right now. Let's start grabbing the higher fruit," end quote. And it continues. Arkansas ranks 48th in the United States in broadband access, according to broadbandnow.com, while 92% of Americans have access to internet speeds of 25 megabits per second for downloads and 3 megabytes for uploads. The federal broadband standard, only 75% of Arkansans do. Okay, let's see here. State Representative Stephen Meeks has a quote here. Skipping down, though. Hang on, because I wanted to get to see. So there were some more legislator quotes in here that I thought were very interesting. Was there one from Senator Rapert? I definitely saw it. Yeah, here's one from Senator Rapert. Quote, "I believe everyone who has taken exception to even calling this a rural broadband program, they have every right to do so. Because what it sounds like you're describing is the Town Connect broadband program, not the Rural Broadband Connect program. To sit here and be told it's not going to include, by definition, rural areas is pretty shocking." I mean, it's pretty funny, right? I mean, this happens all the time with government. You name a bill one thing, and it does the opposite, right? Well, I mean, back when the vaping, there was a bill that was put out there by Senator Hendren a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, about the vaping. And it didn't say an act to tax vaping. That's what the bill's going to do. It was an act to save our children. It's like, wait a second. How does raising more tax money, giving it to the government, what's that to do with the children's safety? Because the implication here is not providing school security, which is what the bill was trying to do. The implication is, we're going to discourage vaping because the vaping is this big monster right now. Anyway, it's not uncommon for pieces of legislation to be titled one thing, but it actually does the complete opposite of what it's claiming, because it's called legislative sleight of hand, or lying, maybe it's called lying too. That's not uncommon. Here, though, the lawmakers are pretty upset. I mean, this is the blatant, well, we want to connect to rural areas. No, just kidding. We want to connect to cities. We're going to break for 1 minute. We'll be back here in just a moment. What do you think about China? Hey, you know, that $25 million, who knows? That $25 million grant for rural internet that's not going to rural communities, but it's really going to cities. Maybe it's a city in Spain, you know, to open up a law office. That's right. The Asa Hutchinson Law Group, the governor's law firm, just opened a new location last month, a new office in Madrid, Spain. That's got to be a pretty penny to have a lawyer in Madrid. They've also got an office in China. Can we expect some European deals soon to be moving here? Maybe they'll replace these defunct ones. But of course, the companies will have to become familiar with the Asa Hutchinson law firm and do business with them. Which comes first? Do you get the economic incentives and the taxpayer money if you're a European company? Do you get that before or after you use the governor's law firm and pay them money? Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
With the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, real quick. This is a good time. We didn't mention this in the first hour, but Congressman Rick Crawford making headlines, temporarily resigning his seat on the permanent Select House Intelligence Committee, where he has served very well there. And matter of fact, that's what the minority leader, Congressman McCarthy, said. And this is a little bit of strategy here. They're doing this to put Jim Jordan on the hearing for these limited impeachment hearings. And I know Congressman Crawford said he looks forward to rejoining his colleagues once the impeachment charade is over. The hoax. I mean, it's a total hoax. They don't even want to hear from the whistleblower anymore. They don't want to hear from the other whistleblower. And apparently I've heard that Donald Trump is going to be releasing another Ukraine call. But this is really good strategy, and I think it's big of Congressman Crawford to do this, because if you know anything about Jim Jordan, he has certainly been, let's just say Jim Jordan is going to be good for the president to have that specific type of offense against what the Democrats are trying to do, which is a coup, which is trying to overturn an election when we have an election less than a year away coming up. Let the people decide they know Trump's going to win. That's why they're doing all of this. But in light of that, let's just kind of take a moment to reflect. What has Congressman Rick Crawford done while he's on the intelligence community? He has warned the state of Arkansas to not trust the communist Chinese. He's done it on this program, and he even went on Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock and said that we can't trust the Chinese. It's not good to economic development, that's fine, he said, but not with the communist Chinese. It is a Trojan horse. They are not here to help us. This flies in the face of everything that Governor Asa Hutchinson and now his son, who's taking money from Chinese companies, and the governor's law firm taking money from Chinese companies and then bringing China. I have been asking, why China? Why does Asa continue to pursue China? It doesn't matter how many tariffs the president puts on. It doesn't matter how many warnings you get from people who are essentially in the intelligence community, FBI, CIA, a sitting Arkansas congressman who knows much more than he can say. You ignore it and you dive head first. You call for the investigation. Well, the president was unwise in talking to the Ukraine. Now we know why Asa said those things. It's his law firm. It's about his law firm.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Buddhists and Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers. And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself, and I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. We need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, hey, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. You've already heard me talk about this once, but next week is the National Apprenticeship Week, and that's where we have this employer forum that's going to take place in Northeast Arkansas and Jonesboro at the First National Bank Arena. That's Tuesday, November 12th from 8:30 to 12. So a little morning there. There's going to be a special guest. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin will be in attendance. Joining us now on the line, I have Mark McManus with the Division of Workforce Services. Mark, how are you this morning? Nice to meet you, sir.
Oh, very nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
So what can you tell us a little bit about this event? What do you hope to accomplish?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this event is really tailored to those that have an interest or potential interest in what is this thing we call registered apprenticeship, and how does it impact what I do as an employer in terms of recruiting talent and retaining talent. So during the meeting, we are going to be having some experts in the room subject matter experts, if you will, that can really speak to kind of what the modern registered apprenticeship means for us today. And I use the word modern because we typically think about registered apprenticeship in the construction trades with electricians and plumbers and carpenters and many of those skilled trades occupations, which it is, but it really affects many industries today and many occupations. So during the meeting, there will be some panelists, a facilitated discussion that will kind of be able to share their experience around registered apprenticeships in their various organizations and how it has impacted them in a positive way. And then we're going to have a representative from USDOL, Department of Labor, Registered Apprenticeship Office State Director. His name is Mr. Lee Price, and Lee is going to be there at the meeting to talk about sort of national trends and environment and how he will be able to assist employers that might have an interest in registered apprenticeship. So we're hoping this will be, informational, kind of an awareness about registered apprenticeship, and we hope people come and ask whatever questions they like to ask, and hopefully we can give them some answers.
And this is designed, I mean, at least the goal, right, is to kind of address, is it to address a skilled workforce shortage that we have, or this idea that we folks need to learn vocational skills and maybe not necessarily put all their eggs in that 4-year college degree, or is there a gray area there?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, certainly our university system and community colleges provide excellent educational opportunities for many through either a 4-year degree path or an associate degree, in some cases a technical certificate through the community colleges. But there's also opportunities for other individuals that, maybe that doesn't necessarily, fit their niche. So that's part of what we want to be able to share to, those job seekers and even, it can be more experienced people that currently are employed and may be looking for, another career path option that registered apprenticeship could be that option.
Yeah. Can you got to go through the process? Like, how would that look? So if there's a business that would be interested in,
absolutely,
how do they go about that? And does that apprenticeship eventually roll over for the person who's the apprentice? Does that roll over into a full-time salary position? I mean, what typically happens? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I might just back up a little bit on that question. Hopefully I'll address it in my comments here, but one of the things that we want to be sure to communicate to the attendees at the forum and the public in general, quite frankly, is my agency, the Division of Workforce Services, has been fortunate to receive some U.S. Department of Labor federal grant awards. We've been working those grants a couple of years now. We have about a year remaining in each of those, 2 active grants that are really targeted for registered apprenticeship expansion in the state. So really what that means is for a employer who may say, I'm learning more about registered apprenticeship, that it might be a fit in my organization. We're having trouble recruiting and retaining talent. How would these federal dollars be able to assist my company? And my answer to that would be that we can offset some of the training cost that would be associated with that. So the federal dollars could be used to support some of that training that's involved. There's always training costs associated with whatever path you take, but if it's a registered apprenticeship path, then the training dollars can support that. And then just kind of the process is, it's not a burdensome process, and we're trying to, at the state level, Division of Workforce Services, my colleagues over at the Office of Skills Development, which is another state agency within the broader Department of Commerce. Our government has undergone a reorg, and we've got a Department of Commerce that has a lot of agencies geared around economic development and workforce development. So there's some support for employers to, let's not worry about, any government red tape. You have some partners that can help you with that, and we want to be able to share that information in the forum and get people interested. It's not a silver bullet.
Right.
There's all, but at least we want to make people aware that, it is a tool in the tool belt that you might want to consider.
We're talking with Mark McManus, Division of Workforce Services. There is an event next week, which is November. Well, actually, it's Tuesday, Tuesday,
Correct.
November 12th. So it's coming up 8:30 to 12, First National Bank Arena. Special guest there will be Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. I understand there's going to be a panel there on the more broader subject. Mark, we're talking with Mark McManus. Why do you think we've come to this point where you even have to have programs like this? And I know that's a loaded question. I'm not saying there's obviously there's a problem. There are people out there trying to address it. There's different ideas. But it just, in the past, when it came time to go to work, people would go to work. But there are employers that have a legitimate problem finding employees that can do these skilled tasks, if you will. So what do you think got us to this point?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and we hear, from employers all the time about, the challenges and difficulties that they experience with, in the recruitment process and getting qualified workers. Some of the incoming applicants may not have, the skill sets that are needed for particular jobs, or they're not really work-ready prepared, which can include a number of things. But I think kind of where we're at in our current economy is that, there is an opportunity through registered apprenticeship, since it is an employer-driven type of workforce development tool. And what I mean by that is, for a given occupation, the employer can say, these are the skill sets that I need. That can be developed through what is called a standards of apprenticeship, and I don't want to bore people with a lot of government sort of terminology, but it's standards that are developed around a given occupation. The employer sets those with assistance from the Office of Apprenticeship that can help guide you through that process. That's one of the partnerships I mentioned earlier that would help with this. And the employer can actually, sort of drive that whole workforce development process to suit their particular need, which in some cases, in the past, and we continue to do it, and it works to some degree, and in some cases it does not, where we're relying on the educational system to produce, various expertise and degreed individuals, which is good, but, in some cases it may not be that exact skill set that's desired in, the employment world. So, these activities are not necessarily mutually exclusive. There are cases where a degreed person can also become, a registered apprenticeship person.
Yes.
They can work in tandem. So I think with our tight labor market, employers are just sort of challenged with, I still have some needs with my workforce. I still need to bring in talent. How do I get there? So it's just, one of the things that I think registered apprenticeship offers value for that.
The Employer Forum, folks, you need to save the date. If you're interested, if you're a business owner out there, Tuesday, November 12th, 8:30 to 12, First National Bank Arena. Special guest, Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin will be there. There'll be a panel. Mark McManus, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning.
Absolutely. And if I could, I'd like to just add one other thing.
Yes, sir.
For the folks that would be interested in attending, and we hope you all do, would like for you to register, if you would, online. We have an Eventbrite, and that's BRITE.com website. You can search the Jonesboro event under the Business Services category, and just click on that link and register. We'd be glad to see you.
All righty. We appreciate it, Mark. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
All righty, folks, back in a minute. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
And local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them and they're going to help you, guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at
Money, power, prestige, essence, available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From the Nata Rhino collection, the fragrance of backroom deals, nepotism, the aroma of higher taxes, subliminal deception, deep state, ace, made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Just kind of refreshing, let's see, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette website. I mean, I know Chad Morris being fired is a big deal. I get that. Got nothing on ASA in China. For if you want more information right now, conduitforaction.org. It'll also be up at Conduit News here momentarily. ConduitNews.com. But at Conduit for Action, little follow-up on this. ASA's answers / deflections on his Chinese connection. Last week, Conduit News broke the story of Governor Hutchinson's law firm representing Chinese companies that have been receiving Arkansas taxpayer money in the form of economic incentives. This includes the fact that the governor's son, Asa III, who is the managing partner of the law firm, was in China with his father attending meetings along with the official Arkansas delegation. This raised the question whether the governor is self-dealing using state incentives. The governor was asked in a video via video. We got one mainstream story on this 3 days ago. KATV, is the governor's son benefiting from his dad being in office? The answer is clearly yes, because all these communist Chinese companies are using the governor's law firm, and they're the same communist entities that have been given taxpayer monies. Here's the clip. This is Governor Asa Hutchinson being asked the question on YouTube. What's up with your son being with you in China? And no, they don't really talk about representing Chinese clients. The question is not a great one, but at least it was asked. Listen.
Yes.
Could you just speak about your son's trip to China?
I want you to watch Asa's hands during this.
Well, as Mike mentioned, as we do these trips, it's not unusual for the private sector partners to, at their own expense, go and either support the mission or to help the companies that they're interested in. For example, in this case, Ray Dillon traveled at his own expense or the expense of the company. I'm not sure which one, but he was there at the request of Sun Paper. And so he participated in part of the meetings that we had that related to Sun Paper project. Likewise, Rajesh Shakani went at his own expense to India to support our mission there. Likewise, Attorney Hutchinson, at his own expense, came here to China to support projects that are important to his client, but also very important to the state of Arkansas. He has a international immigration practice that is a little bit unique, and the visas for some of these international companies is a critical issue for them. So delighted to have that support that was paid for by the private companies and not at taxpayers' expense, and so he participated in at least one of the meetings there in China and part of the ambassador's reception.
Thank you.
All right, stop. That's all it was. Arkansas Democrat Gazette didn't report on that at all. That not even the question being asked. So here's a few claims. Asa the Third came to China and Japan at his own expense. Does that mean the Asa Hutchinson Law Group or perhaps Chinese clients? Was it at their expense? Asa the Third came to support projects that are important to his client, the Chinese, right? That's what we're talking about, the Chinese. That's his client. Number 3, it is not unusual for Arkansans from the private sector to attend such meetings at their own expense, what the governor said. Then he named some Arkansas business people on the trip. Wonder how well that went over with them, with the governor outing them as being on the trip. So travel expenses, whether or not the state paid for the travel, whether or not Asa the Third paid for it, that has never been the issue. That's a way to deflect. And by the way, I don't know if you saw his hands there. He had a clenched fist, and then he starts fidgeting. He was definitely not the cool, collected Asa that he normally is, where he just sticks to talking points. He clearly seems a little nervous about this question. So here's other questions. Is the governor receiving income from his law firm? If he is not taking income at this time, are profits from representing the Chinese being accumulated as assets of the firm to be available for the governor to tap in the future? And I got a question also, does using the Asa Hutchinson law firm put you at the top of the list for economic development incentives? Let me ask that question again. If you were to put the Asa Hutchinson Law Group on retainer, does that mean that you go to the front of the line for state contracts and economic development incentives? Isn't one of the benefits to the governor the increased status of the law firm, which may benefit him when he leaves public office. They just opened a new office in Madrid, Spain. Assuming the governor has no present or future stake in the law firm, is this another Joe Biden, Hunter Biden situation where an office holder uses his position to benefit his son? These are all questions that need answers. Will we get them? I don't know if we will until the mainstream media decides to actually report on this. Until we get you have one mainstream news outlet, KATV, that ran a report. They aired it on television, and there's an article about it. And the anchor, I don't know what his name is, can't remember, he said, boy, we look forward, I'm sure we're going to hear more about this soon. Yeah, that was 3 days ago. I mean, I can't believe there hasn't been. Now, listen, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, they may be investigating and finding a lot of stuff that I haven't found. So maybe they're not writing the story till they have a bunch of stuff. You know, maybe maybe they're waiting on a confirmation here, or they're waiting on a confirmation there. Maybe they wanted to wait for the governor to fly back home and ask him some questions. So, I mean, I'm still willing to withhold and give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, but I'm more pessimistic because I think they would have run a story, at least one headline by now, if they wanted to cover this. So the question then, if the Arkansas Democrat Gazette just refuses to publish one word of this scandal, then I start asking, why would the Arkansas Democrat Gazette ignore this corruption or this appearance of corruption? And then I start asking, well, China, I do know that the Chinese will pay publications. Specifically, I know that the Chinese will pay like agricultural publications to run their propaganda to make the president look bad in states that he won, about the corn and the soybean, the tariffs and how that's affecting things. I have said that these agricultural publications should not take the money from the Chinese to run their propaganda. You may disagree with the president on tariffs, but we don't need China to tell us about it because you can't trust anything they say. So my next speculation would then be, okay, where'd those iPads come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be my next, I'd start to kind of be like, well, why wouldn't the Democrat Gazette report on this? I don't know, man. You got to follow the money is what I'm saying. So the Democrat Gazette and all these other mainstream media outlets as well, it looks really suspicious that you guys are not running with this story because it's all black and white right there. Telephone number 870-275-9799. I want to direct you to a meme of the day. Here it is. Sorry. This is via Political Warfare, all one word on Instagram, Political Warfare. Christmas is coming, and so we went with a Christmas meme, even though it's not Thanksgiving yet. It's Clark Griswold hanging those Christmas lights in the classic movie Christmas Vacation. Russ, those Christmas lights don't hang themselves. And Russ holding the big ball of Christmas lights. Neither did Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein memes. They're lasting longer than Epstein did in prison. That's for sure. They're outliving Epstein. We'll post this up on the Twitter page at Conduit News. I do want to direct you right before we go. Who picked your pocket? Democrats, Republicans, both? It's a post at Conduit for Action reminding you of the economic realities. We need to talk about candidates for the Arkansas House of Representatives and Senate legislature and their stand on imposing taxes. We do need to, consider this. And there's a good note here. Yes, we know that the big issue this week is Governor Hutchinson using taxpayer money to attract Chinese companies that are clients of his law firm, Asa Hutchinson Law Group. Conduit News broke that story and has followed up with extensive details. One mainstream media outlet, KATV, is now asking questions. To get up to date on that story, go to Conduit News. CFA will follow up later, but for today, because of the filing deadline, we need to talk about taxes and candidates. Candidate filing for the 2020 election ends Tuesday, November 12th at noon. So we wondered how the political parties compared when it came to voting to impose tax increases. For that comparison, go to conduitforaction.org right now. We're going to have more news tomorrow. It'll be a good one on the program. Arkansas, have a great day. Be safe.